What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast dedicated to you, the digital agency owner, for helping you scale a lot faster. Today, I have a great guest, an agency owner that's grown his agency, and we're going to talk about branded content and how to make your videos really stand out and do the right storytelling. So let's go ahead and get into the episode. Hey, Zach, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
Yeah, so I'm excited to have you. So tell us who you are and what do you do?
Absolutely. Zachary Slingsby. I'm the founder of Human Factor Media. We're an award-winning branded content team. More or less, we make short films for brands.
Awesome. And how did you get into that? What led you down picking this niche and starting an agency?
It feels kind of like an accident. I've always just loved stories, loved writing my whole life, and always been aficionado of film and literature. And you start to go down the traditional artistic path, and that's beset by any number of frustrations, as I'm sure you know. And so, you think through what are some market applications of this skill set, and one of them seemed to be that brands were acting as stages for their audiences. And so one of the things one of the mandates for modern brands was to storytell and to entertain and engage. And so I thought that we would have a skill set that matched that demand.
When I got into this business 8 years ago now, holy cow, holy shit, that's a long time.
Can we curse on this? You just curse.
Oh yeah, we can curse.
Okay, good.
It's my show. We can do whatever we want.
Whatever you want.
But when I got started, I remember my first video, and everyone can watch it on YouTube. I think it's one of the first videos. I remember I looked like an Oompa Loompa. I remember trying to do a video, just being so serious, like, I am Jason, and
Yeah.
my stuff is really good, and I help out agency owners. And I remember my cat kept bugging me at my foot, like my feet just kept go around and meowing. Finally, I picked up this cat. I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to make it a funny video. And I held the cat and then I just kind of riffed and I watched the Dollar Shave Club video maybe
Hmm.
3 days before. So it actually came out like that. And then it got popular and then people started knowing. So, and then one of our things was to entertain people and tell the right story rather than just come out and going, insert one into two and you will grow your agency by 4x, right? Like, it's just like, oh, screw that.
It's like YouTube pre-rolls of the guys with a whiteboard and telling you exactly how they. Yeah, it's just you're talking to a whole different side of a person when you're communicating that way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of agency owners and agencies, if they do their own marketing, a lot of us forget to do marketing for our own selves, which is kind of crazy because we do such a good job for the brands that we work with, but I think we don't make time. But you got to think about how can you set yourself apart, and what are some things that the listeners can actually do, or what are some suggestions to making or being better storytellers?
Well, I think there's a brand answer and an agency answer. And just to talk about the second one first, why do you have that bumper at the beginning there? Then I thought that was really interesting. What goes into that in your mind? Like, why do you put that up front?
Yeah, great question. You got to think most agency owners are working all the time, around the clock. They have no freedom whatsoever. And why they don't have any freedom is because they don't have any systems in place, or they don't really. I remember when I was creating my agency, I never had a resource I could actually tap on, someone that actually has done it. So why I kind of show the mountains and that kind of stuff, and why I post on Instagram the fun stuff rather than the boring tech stuff, is it's the lifestyle. Most people want to be able to go live on a mountain or have the freedom to live on the mountain if they want, or a beach or whatever it is. So that's why we have that quick bumper on there.
It's really well done. And anyone listening on a podcast, it's a montage of Jason in different settings, and most of them are not business related. And so Yeah, I mean, it's storytelling, as we were talking about before, is a very truncated term now, but that to me is storytelling, and it's a very primitive invitation to people watching to say, this is who I am outside of work too, and this is also it's an invitation to be part of your community, your culture, and it's very simple in some ways, but like there's an old definition of economics that what commerce really is lowering uncertainty about one another so that we can exchange value. And I think that that is where true narrative value can be an asset. Um, um, there's a guy who I talked to just a couple days ago a he's a friend of mine, high up executive at a very famous car company and a German car company. I'll say that. And so he was saying
Porsche.
how he close, warmer. So he was saying how you everybody he talks to all the time is trying to figure out a way to compete with Amazon. Like, well, if we do this, we can compete with Amazon. If we do this, we can compete with Amazon. Those are all the executives all over the place. They're trying to figure out on any kind of retail basis, how do we compete with them? And he tells them all, you're never going to compete with Amazon. You've got to deliver something that Amazon can't, that Amazon inherently can't. And his answer to that is community. They can't, Amazon can never do that. They're the Goliath. They're never going to be able to become a local presence in your lives. They'll never be able to tap into a human factor for you. And so, what agencies and brands can do is try to communicate in a way that is completely unbusinesslike, completely unbrand, completely surprising and delightful in the sense that you're now entering this realm of your leisure experience. You're entering this realm of what a person does after they're at work, and it's a magical superpower.
Yeah, I love that. I was watching one of my favorite movies is Moneyball with
Yep.
Brad Pitt, right? About the athletics. And I remember when they're sitting in a room, I'm probably going to butcher it, but they're literally, and I think a lot of agency owners do this when you meet with your team. You're like, how do we compete with the Grays and the DDBs of the world and all these big agencies? And I remember when they were talking about like recruiting, or I think, or what is it? Not recruit. Is it recruiting? It's not recruiting. It's the draft or whatever. Or
They're yeah,
draft,
right, and who they were gonna trade
who they're
for, and
going to
who they're
bring
gonna
in,
pick. Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And they were like, well, the Yankees do it this way. And we're like, if we compete with the Yankees in here, we're going to lose because we don't have the budget. And
exactly.
agency owners don't have the budget of these big agencies.
He
And
keeps asking
so,
his team, "What is our problem? What is our problem?" And they're like, "Well, we don't have Giambi anymore." No, he said the problem is here's the Yankees. Here's the worst team in baseball, or the least funded team in baseball, and there's 30 feet of crap, and then there's us. So you're right. Yeah,
yes.
it's a perfect analogy.
Yeah. And so, as agencies, we need to think about how do we compete with ourselves, right? Like, how do we change the game? And what Billy Bean and his team did was like, how do we buy getting on base? That's it. I don't care if you can field. I mean, literally, they took someone that was a catcher that can't even throw, and they put him on first base, but he could get on base. And
Mm.
so the question you need to be asking is, what's your base? How can you get on base and really change that narrative? All right. So now that we're talking
Love that.
about kind of changing that narrative of the storytelling, and we were talking about you guys are going to come out with like a web series, like walk us through that kind of plan and give us some ideas.
In terms of how we go about deciding to make that, or what the value of it is to us, or brand
Exa-
value, all those things. Yeah.
all of those things as I choke
Okay.
on a pistachio.
Okay. Well, let signal twice if you can't communicate anymore. So why do we make a web series? I don't. Every brand and agency will have similar marketing options thrown at them. You're a young business or you're a middle tier business. We all know the moves that you can do. You have certain protocols that are expected of you, and that you can apportion some amount of your budget to. But they're all going to match up, and the value propositions will often look strikingly similar, especially when you get into an area that's totally undifferentiated, like hot sauce or sneakers or sunglass brand, or or maybe in the case of agency owners, we're social media marketing, right? You could throw a rock in New York and accidentally hit one, and so you're you're all sort of competing for the same space on the same platforms, and oftentimes using the same message to do so. So I think the question becomes, why not try to use narrative value to distinguish yourselves? It's really the only X factor that you have, is the way that you're going to speak to another human being on the other end of the screen. Um, Now, in our case, it's a marriage of convenience too, because we love to do this, and our background is creative, and we would be doing this whether we could be paid for it or not. And so, we're all in this for the creative work. But I think that the way that Lexus committed to having a theater page where they were making, comedy shows, the way that Patagonia has committed to storytelling, North Face is winning film festivals now, the way that Huckberry and Budweiser and Yeti, I think all these guys have figured out something that is incredibly telling about where the market is, which is we're expecting brands to go past the age of the commercial. We're expecting brands to compete for our attention the same way that our favorite publisher, platform, media company competes for our attention. And so that's the rationale. I can talk about the specifics of our projects, but that's kind of, I think it's pretty ironclad. I mean, I think we're all in agreement. You go to a garden variety conference now, and the keynote always has to do with storytelling. It always has to do with a human touch. It always has to do with figuring out a way to stand out by trying to not engage in raw commerce, not sell a product. So I don't know if it's
Yeah.
a very long-winded
What?
answer, but yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of? Do you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
Yeah, yeah, media, the guy in New York.
Yep. I think they also have an office in Nashville too, the Sasha Group. But one
Okay.
of the prime examples that I always kind of look at, when agencies talk about, hey, I don't have time to create content, or why would I create content? Gary built his whole agency empire by just creating content and having one person. And it wasn't even his idea. I think
Hmm.
he had this one person that wanted a job with him say, hey, I'll follow you around and I'll create a story from it. Now, I don't think most people are as entertaining as him. And so
Hmm.
I've seen people going, oh, I'll hire someone to film me around. And this guy's just sitting at the computer, or gal sitting at the computer. I'm like, this is freaking boring as shit. But, what are some, because a lot of people listening are like, okay, I want to create, this content, but I have no idea what we can do. And, I always tell people create a podcast, but let's kind of dive into the video world, because so many people are having a hard time creating a video. Or even use me as an example. What
Hmm.
would you suggest outside of this that we need to do?
Well, so we're talking about agencies, right? So
Yes.
it's a harder question. The Vayner model is a great one. I mean, I would find some way to create a YouTube channel, and this is very tactical. And really, I should say this is a little outside of our expertise, because we're making shows for publishers, and we're making shows that for a lot, most of the time we're doing it for people who want shows, not, let's say, promotional or business
Well,
promotional stuff, right?
what
So,
show would you recommend to
right, right,
agencies
right.
in?
Right. Right. So that's what I'm thinking about. Right. It's like, I think another great example, there's an agency in Dubai that just says Life in a Dubai Marketing Agency. And they have a kind of a roving vlog, and they cut it into very creative episodes, one a week. And they built up a very successful YouTube presence. Obviously, Barstool would be a kingpin example. Feel however you might about them. And I know people feel differently, but it's a very, they do The Office. They make The Office every week. Michael Scott's like that. That's their. They even have a theme song that is a rip off The Office. And every week one guy is running around collecting funny stories for the week, and they cut it into an episode at the end of the week. And you've seen a lot of ripoffs of that. And it's not like they invented vlogging or office, cameras, but it's very. I for sure is, you can trace the roots of that entertainment value to their purchase and buyout. Um, if I'm an agency, let's say that you're smaller, so you're a 10-person agency. Now the deck is a little more against you. You have fewer resources, and you also have less time because you're serving clients all the time. So if I'm a group like that, I would probably go. I think that spending time as we are now developing a YouTube channel or some social media following and one channel. Pick a channel, doesn't have to be all of them. I think sometimes we get hamstrung by trying to do 12 of them. I would pick a channel where you say we're going to commit resources to this particular endeavor, and growing it even to eventually to 20 or 50,000 or 100,000 subscribers, you're immediately light years ahead of 99% of your competitors. And so I think we have to redefine a win a little bit. I don't think we all need to be Vayner with 4 million or subscribers or whatever. I think we can create theater pages according to the kinds of stuff we're good at making, and then create a routine in our agencies where someone is tasked with posting it. To your point about the person on the computer and whatever, it can't be an afterthought. It has to be well conceived. If you have the creative talent in house, usually you do, spend a couple days ironing out what it looks like to put your values into a story. And if not, bring in a group and figure out. A lot of times, a lot of clients we work with, we're filming for a week, a year, but we're creating, enough content for twice a month. And so maybe that's more of the strategy for a busy agency.
Yeah,
But
I love it.
yeah, I'll stop there. But
Yeah,
you're, yeah,
and
go ahead.
I love that you say consistency, right? Like a lot of people will put out 2, 3 videos and going, no one's watching. Well, who cares? I watch on Facebook. There's Nas Daily, I think he's called. He's from the Middle East, and he's really good. He would do a video every day for a minute,
Hmm.
and like he would highlight something in the world. And for a long time, no one ever watched him, but now he's huge, and his team's 100 people now. I think he's even formed an agency from it, right? As you start building a brand, which is an example of why you should do a show and build your personal brand, which will build everything else. But I
Absolutely.
remember watching something, and he showed this guy from Africa that moved to Italy and never spoke, but he has like, what was it like? It was some weird number, like 12 million followers.
Hmm.
And like he's the face of Guess, um, or some big brand, because he would just post these funny videos during the pandemic and no one would
Hmm.
watch. Like his first couple videos were like 5 views. That's it. And just kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. And then obviously he's at the level. So I want to tell everybody listening,
I love that.
this is a long tail strategy. You have to do it for a year and probably until you have it. But when you're building an agency, you got to think about the long term and the short term. You
Yes.
just can't do short term stuff. And I think it's a really good strategy. So thanks for
I'll
coming.
be honest. I'll give you our corollary to that, which is like we've gotten to make shows for publishers that have millions of followers. So we make content that gets hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, and then we go to create some of our own stuff, and we start our own YouTube channel from zero, and you got to live with 150 views, 175 views, 200 views, and you're like, what are we? It's a humbling process, and it forces you, like you just said, to treat consistency as the ultimate virtue. And if you can do that, the payoffs, the dividends start to compound. It's not an overnight thing. But I for sure think that you can think about it the way you're building a business. I mean, you're reaching out to 100 people, 99 say no at first. And so you did that process over and over, compounded by years, and you have a successful company. You don't need everyone to say yes. You just need enough success to keep coming back. And so I think that's kind of a good analogy there.
Yeah, and really just kind of ignore the vanity metrics, honestly, and actually to ignore the comment I said, "Don't film you just at a computer typing."
Mm.
Because I was watching a documentary on Mr. Beast, and he's hilarious. I
Yeah,
love that channel.
yeah,
Like he started off freaking filming himself counting to 1 million. Like
yeah.
literally, and people would watch this shit. I think they would probably skip ahead and be like, "Oh wow, he's there." Like you got to be really insane if you're going to watch someone count to 1 million or something stupid like that. So if anybody watched it, wow, that's commitment. But he started off there, and then he's grown this huge empire. All these nonprofits and these companies. So just get someone's attention,
Hmm.
and you could be boring, and you'll attract boring people. But that might be
Mm,
good for you. So
mm. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a weird one. With him, he's like, I don't even know how many. He's mega success, and he just constantly. I saw an interview with him too, where he was constantly trying to do what he thought was interesting, what he thought was funny, inject his own sensibility into his content. And there's definitely something there for people who want to do it. And look, some people don't want to do it, and it's not right for everyone either. You know, it's not a perfect solution for everybody. There are brands that we talk to that I can tell it's not a storytelling is not a match. Brand videos, brand entertainment, a documentary series. It's not where they are. They have a limited runway. Maybe they're in the startup phase. They have a burn rate and they have quarterly metrics, and it's not really a match, And so I understand why some people say everything's on fire. We can't go out right now and make a documentary
yeah.
video. But all that to say, I think all the other points here are very salient.
Yep. One little hack that we try to go off of when we are thinking about doing an entertaining video is say the things that people are thinking, but they're afraid to say.
Oh
And
man,
that's
yeah.
usually really good. Like we did a video about, you know how like the pharmacy commercials are always like with the side effects, like they're like, I can't even say that'd be like vomiting, diarrhea, like all these things. We're like, I
Erectile
don't want any
dysfunction.
of
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
And this is just to make my finger feel better. Like I don't want to do that. And so we did a video of like it's called a fucking process, but it's like APH, right? And it's like a play on that, and it says like all the shit that agency owners are struggling with. And so if you do things like that, those are just some little hacks. But
I think
well,
that's brilliant because it's meeting the person where they are, and it's a moment of resonance for them to be like, "Oh, I thought that this problem was only in my head, and this guy just told me what it was." It's the magical kind of element of literature, which is you read a book and you come to a paragraph, and you read something about yourself, and you're like, how do they do that? That's incredible, and if you can make that light switch go off in people, they trust you with where to go next.
yeah, exactly. Well, Zach, this has all been great. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the agency owners listening in?
I think that to I think it's easy to think that creativity is very separate from our business goals. I think it's easy to say like, well, we'll get to that when we have a little more time, a little more budget, a little more freedom, to take it to experimental chances. But most of the brands that we've worked with and most of the case studies we've seen, taking that creative chance has made all the difference. And it should not be dismissible as an afterthought, because at the decibel level that things are now, and with the emergence of so many new voices, and with people paying so much money to skip traditional ads on a regular basis, that creative chance is really the X factor that everyone needs. It's a vital thing. It's not something that is the luxury of a couple of big players. It's an indispensable strategy to any agency and any brand.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and what's the agency website people can go and check you guys out?
Humanfactormedia.co, and you can find us Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and you can email me as well, zack@humanfactormedia.co.
Awesome. Well, Zach, thanks so much for coming on the show. And if you guys enjoyed this episode and you want to be around amazing agency owners where we can see the things that you might not be able to see just because you're too damn close to the trees and you can't see through the forest, and you want to hear the most amazing strategies that are currently working, not strategies that worked 20 years ago, I'd love to invite all of you to go check out digitalagencyelite.com and check it out. And if you have questions, let us know, and maybe we'll chat soon. And until next time, have a swank day.